Boulder and Denver have higher mill levies, right? So with those sort of property valuations, it's interesting to look. The value of property in the county of Boulder is the same as it is in the entire El Paso County area, with half the population. So those are some of the challenges that local government, whether it's the county or the city level, face. So now this is something that Barry Baum over there in the corner. We were both involved with the city committee 5 years ago as we crawled through city finances. Barry kindly puts these charts together. Mayor Steve Bark often referred to these charts as the going out of business charts, right? What this shows, these charts show, these are the various elements of the city budget. The biggest by far and away is compensation, right? Next item is healthcare costs, pensions, and capital expenditures is the little orangey bit here, right? And then you can see here's the revenues. Problem is, costs are growing faster than revenue. This is with or without, you know, your 2C funding, right? There's a lot of backlog of work that needs to be done that hasn't been funded for the city. So this is the low inflation model that Barry and Kara was involved in putting this together. This is the high inflation model, and what these charts show is the general fund, currently around $40-odd million, right, the kind of rainy day fund, that will go to zero in the year 2021, right? Remember, 2C can only be used for roads, right? Can't be used to just fund general government. So, on these charts, the key thing to note here is this little orangey bit, capital expenditures. These are things that fix roads, bridges, those sorts of things. Okay? That base funding on that little chart, that's $21 million a year, is all we spend on capital expenditure, right? I came out of an industry, semiconductors, the metropolis on Garden of God's Road called Rockwell became Intel. I built that place, right? That was, I think, if we had actually fully fitted it out, that was $3.5 billion. Intel's kind of rule of thumb is they will spend 20% of revenues every year on capital. So for them, 50 billion a year in revenue, they spend 10 billion on new factories every year, new equipment, right? Not quite the same for the city of Colorado Springs. We add in stormwater, right? We got the skip bonds back, and city employees did not have a salary increase this year in order to fund the stormwater, to get ahead of the curve and get Pueblo off our backs on SDS. Then we added 2C, 50 million for roads. Then you have to add our share of PPRTA, right? We get 80% of the 1% that's collected for PPRTA. So we have the capability of spending $135 million a year within the city of Colorado Springs on capital stuff. Is it enough? The short answer to that is no. Because over the years, we have built up a significant backlog, right? It's like we didn't take care of our property, right? We couldn't afford it, we didn't paint it. We didn't coat the driveway crumbled, right? And off it went. Well, now it's going to be quite, you know, this is the kind of backlog that the city folks have kind of come up with. I think it's very valid. I think it's not, you know, it's not high, it's not low, it's pretty accurate. From the previous chart, you remember we got $135 million a year to spend on capital, right? Divide 135 into 1.5 billion, it's going to take 10 years with existing funding to fix the existing backlog. So, but stuff keeps crumbling. We've got to fix it, right? And it doesn't include things like the redevelopment of the southwest part of downtown or the recovery of some areas like southeast of Academy, right? The south part of Academy, et cetera, et cetera. So you can see the challenge is significant. How did we get here? Well, you can see going back to those economy charts, we basically expanded in an incredibly unprofitable way. It was like the businesses I was in, there was a product called DRAMs. Don't worry, we'll make it up on volume. Build another factory, it'll be okay. We'll make it up on volume. Every PC needs memory, right? It'll be all right. Well, profit margins went in the tank, and here we leave ourselves with a city, 450,000 people within the city of Colorado Springs, 200 square miles, As we saw with 2C, 5,500 lane miles of road, we have a poorly performing economic base, and we've just kind of kicked the can down the road. We've now got a big factory that we don't have the revenue to maintain. So this is some more details, and I think put some perspective on this. This now goes back 20 years. You can see the population growth in the MSA, El Paso County, Teller County combined. This is the growth, many of you are aware, has not taken place within the city of Colorado Springs. The growth has taken place within El Paso and Teller counties. Look at Falcon. Falcon didn't exist 15 years ago, right? There's hundreds, thousands of homes probably out there now. However, this is where we get into this kind of expansion. Inflation, 55% over this period, 20 years. Median household income has only gone up by 28%. Not even keeping up with inflation. So, if you look at the city budget, right, that's gone up by 111%. So they've made, because of additional taxes, etc., we've been able to keep that city budget growing to maintain the infrastructure, but as you've seen, it's still not enough. On top of that, it means that we have lost the income base. Well, we don't have the number of people working. As you saw in the previous slide, they haven't been able to keep up with inflation on their salaries, which means they just basically spend their salaries on the necessities, which means they don't buy cars, color TV sets, and everything else we pay sales tax on. So you can see the income base has gone up by 78%, but as we've been forced to add all these other taxes, including PSST, PPRTA, and now 2C, we've had to increase city budget by 200%, at a time when our income base has only gone up by 78%, so we're having to tax a bigger portion of the pie, because the pie is not growing. And this is really, on top of that, we've kind of, a few other problems, right? Rebates of sales taxes in these areas. If anybody goes to University Village, right? How much sales tax do you think the City of Colorado's general fund sales tax, the City of Colorado Springs collects on a purchase at University Village? Correct, 0. So when you see that parking lot packed, the City of Colorado Springs does not benefit from those purchases. They're rebated back to pay for the infrastructure development. Special tax districts, many of these, right, the developers have used these to develop First and Main. Also for anybody who lives in Flying Horse, you look at your property tax bill, there's a PIF, right, or a special tax district, right, that goes to fund the infrastructure that went in there. So not all people in Colorado Springs think their property taxes are low, particularly if you're in the north part of town. Reduction in the city property tax rate, touched on that earlier. That probably has cost Kara and her team $15 million a year or more, 20 million maybe, as we reduced the mill levy to avoid having to go ask for TABOR refunds. That's a significant chunk of money when your budget is $300 million a year. Right? Developments outside the city. Right? 20 years ago, there was no South Academy, Sam's, and Walmart, and everything else. There was nothing on Baptist Road. Everybody came into the city of Colorado Springs to make their taxable purchases. Don't have to do that anymore, right? You can live in Black Forest and never pay a dime of Colorado Springs sales tax. And then lastly, leakage on internet sales. This is always a fun one. What percentage of total retail sales in the United States do you think goes over the internet? Online purchases as a percent of total things people buy. Any guesses? Come on.
25%?
45?
5%.
90.
35%.
Carl is the closest. I think, correct me if I'm wrong, Barry, 7.6% last year.
You need, it's without cars.
Yes, you're sorry. It's without cars and buying food at restaurants. Yeah. 7.6%. But for the city of Colorado Springs, that's $4 or $5 million, right, that we see leak out. So there's other things, right? Here's the road example, right, that I think is very instructive as we have to look at this going forward. City population, number of households, per the justification that was used for 2C, right, is 2C costs $100 a household, right? Tax rate is this, therefore the average household spends $16,129 on taxable purchases a year. Everybody goes, whoa, that's low? Wait a minute, $55,000 is the average household income. Take off mortgages, take off healthcare, which you don't pay taxes on, etc. You come down to a number that's very close to this. So let's look at roads. When you do the calculation, right? This number of lane miles, each lane 12 feet wide. The cost of asphalt from the Asphalt Society of America is approximately $4 a square foot. Just to resurface existing roads, somewhere around $1.4 billion. Right? But we haven't fixed curb and gutter. And you can do a similar calculation for the folks in public safety that need new fire trucks, that need new police cars, that need to have these, I think, Sand Creek station that's being redone, etc., etc. There are other items that are required to fund a city. The message on this slide is you pick a number, an average number of how often you think the roads need to be resurfaced. Most cities use an average number of 20 years. That means your cul-de-sac will get done every 30 or 40, right? Your Austin Bluffs Parkway may get done every 5, right? The average is 20. The message on this slide is you can see that calculation. This is PPRTA, right? The funding that we have here already. This is the increment for 2C that we put in place. This is the 20-year line. The message is 2C can never go away. We have built such a large infrastructure of roads. We can never get 2C to go away because otherwise we have no money to fix the roads, right? That's what happens when you build big, unprofitable factories. Sustainable funding, right? You can see it. Our economic output does not support the municipality that we have built. We are going to have to come up with additional taxes. I know it's a dirty word, but in the end, you've got to deal with reality, right? If revenue doesn't meet the cost, you've got to do something. And probably the two logical places to look at will be property taxes and LART. And we can get into that. If you want to talk about mill levies, I think our mill levy from a county standpoint is around 7 mills. Boulder, I mentioned earlier, I think is at 22 mills or thereabouts. They have the same value of property as we do. So for every mill, very crudely, Boulder and Colorado Springs is the same, they generate $6 million per mill. Right? It's very kind of crude calculation. We cannot, particularly as we look at banning Lewis Ranch, we cannot continue this unprofitable expansion. In the end, I think Napoleon criticized the English of being this. We will become a nation of shopkeepers. We'll have lots of people living here, but no people working because there'll be no factories, right? There'll be no places where they can work. So we have really got to focus here on both cost and revenue, right? And you know, all that we're talking about here, all this, we talk about the city of Colorado Springs. You can take the same charts, and I've reviewed this with the county commissioners. You can take the same charts and replace them with El Paso County. You can take the same charts and put in Colorado Springs utilities. We all face the same challenges. It's amazing what the economy does drive. Put in perspective, this is the long-term trend on jobs. Remember, and I was part of this, the heydays of high tech. We were adding 12,000 new salaried wage jobs per year, right? In this time frame. Oops, we got a dot-com boom bust here. Oops, the Great Recession. You know, we're back here, I think that maybe the latest statistics, we added 7,000 jobs last year, right? But that's on a population of now 700,000. This is not a long-term solution. We can tax ourselves off the edge of the cliff, right? But this is what we've done. We've been forced to layer up the taxes, right, from back here at 4 or 5% with PPRTA, et cetera, et cetera. We can't keep doing that, right? We're already one of the highest sales tax rates in the state. This hopefully is the simplest chart to get the point across. You can either tax a bigger portion of the pie or grow the pie, aka the economy itself. And what this chart shows is this slice here is the taxes collected to fund local government. The area of this blue bar is the set, or blue segment is the same as this, right? This, right, is a bigger pie. This was the tax rate we had in the mid-90s when things were going well. We had to grow this pie by 37% to get back to where we were in the 90s. We have to grow the economic output, the economic spending by 37% to get to where we were in the 90s. That is a huge, huge task. So a lot of things that I think, you know, we have to be innovative. This is a call to action, right? We've got to focus on economic development, which is what the kind of the top section talks about. We've got to work on revenue. We also have to focus, you know, with the folks that work for the city, we've got to get more efficient, right? How do we do more with less? Because we're not going to be able to grow the revenue fast enough to fix all the challenges and funding needs we have down below. This friend of Barry's put a presentation together a few months ago, right, and it brought back a seminal work for those of us who were in the high-tech world back then, In Search of Excellence, right, Tom Peters. These are some of the things that we need to embrace as a community if we are going to truly be an excellent community going forward.